part one of this podcast, we talked about the ways in which clean energy is becoming more accessible to more people. In part two, we're going to be discussing with Andrew the ways in which he's gone on his own sustainability journey during the renovation of his house. So you bought a house in Doncaster?
Retford, yeah.
Retford.
So 20 miles south of Doncaster, yeah.
Okay.
Market town.
And you just, I think for the viewers at home and the people who are thinking of embarking on this journey, and it can be a daunting process. So it would be really helpful just to talk us through from that first day. You've got the keys, you've walked into your forever home. I'm assuming it's your forever home.
Hopefully, yeah.
And you've got in your head what you're going to do on that journey. Now you obviously, coming at this from a position of experience, and you know what you probably had in your head, what you're already going to do on that journey. But for a lot of people, that isn't in a background they've come from. So just talk us through what is the process? What would you do if you were advising our viewers and you're going on this journey? What is that first step? What do you take a look at? And then what was the journey that you went on to get to where you're at today?
So, I mean, for me, I was looking, as you said, forever home, family home, a house that I really wanted to live in. That's the primary thing. A house wasn't about energy saving necessarily. It was, here's a house I want. A very standard customer thing. And at the time when I bought the house, I was living in a little 2-bed flat. I was single. I was sat, there wasn't much going on, in terms of where I was living. It wasn't what I wanted long term in my life. I thought, so I need to buy a house. I can afford to now. What am I going to buy? And signed up it's a late 1920s, early 1930s detached house that had basically been empty for 15, 20 years. Not lived in, not touched, looked after, but not lived in. And so very derelict, very inefficient. I think 2 of the windows opened, the rest were locked shut. Drafts everywhere, woodworm in some of the floor. It was in a pretty bad state. And my vision was, I've worked in energy all my life. Not only do I want a house that I want to live in for a long time and hopefully have a family, I also want to see if I can get that to net zero. No point sitting on podcasts like this saying, "Oh, everyone get to net zero," and then not do it myself. Do you know what I mean? So it was I guess recognizing a process. And for me, I've followed the process very quickly. In 2 years, I've done a lot of work myself, getting a house to that position. But I've learned a lot about how you might step efficiency into your house.
And you did the work yourself, or were you bringing contractors in to do that work? Or
a lot of the work I did myself.
Yeah.
So the plumbing, I fitted the plumbing system myself. Solid wall insulation, I did a lot of that work myself. But I was very lucky that I had a very, very good friend who was there every weekend helping me, who we talked and we checked things through with each other, and I had a really good network of professionals who I could speak to. So, for example, on the plumbing, I knew the local plumbing company very well. It's a small town. Could ask them for a bit of advice around what pipes to fit and where, and what the regulations were, etc. So they kind of checked my work before I did anything, and were happy to do that because everyone was so bloody busy in COVID and post-COVID. They were happy to let me do that. Electrical work, obviously, I had all that done professionally. Anything that needed building regs was done professionally, etc. But the vision was to basically make it a more efficient house. And there's a couple of principles I followed. So like it's an old house and it had all the original features in it. My first rule is I actually wanted to keep all of those. Picture rails in every room. Wanted to keep the old wooden floors. There's a tiled, like a Victorian tiled hall. I wanted to keep that. But also wanted to bring it up to modern standards. So, for example, the other principle is to take opportunities to be more efficient when I got them. A really good example is the windows. Sash windows everywhere, single glazing, holes in 3 of them. They needed replacing. And they had a couple of quotes. People come round, found someone I liked. They were local, really, liked their proposition. And they quoted, as you do, double glazing. And I said, well, how much is it to do triple? And I'm like, you don't need triple glazing, Andrew. You're not living near an airport. Triple glazing's for noise. I was like, yeah, but it's also more energy efficient. And I'm like, well, it is more energy efficient, but people do it for noise, really. Do you really want it? I was like, no, just give me a price. And it was like, 5% more money on all the windows to get triple glazing in. It's taking the opportunity when I was doing work to do it in the most energy efficient way.
Yeah. I think that I would be interested to understand what you did on that basis from a plumbing perspective as well.
Yeah.
Because, I think one of the headaches that we have, and it's probably been ingrained into the industry over the years, is that we've benefited from high temperature, the high temperature heating systems,
the
boilers that can output higher temperatures. So from a customer's experience, the mindset is, I want you to price up to do this job so that my home is warm. Whereas if the mindset was, I want you to price up this job to make my system as energy efficient as possible in those moments, as low cost. Well, it's that it's that balance, isn't it? That capital cost and to have that work done. But in the moment where you're doing that level of renovation, did you do anything to minimize your running costs from a heating system perspective at that time?
Yeah. So right from the outset, I knew I wanted a heat pump. Global warming is to try and combat that is, I want to be part of that journey and have an impact. So I wanted a heat pump. I wanted decarbonised heat. And I think it was 2021, I got the keys. And the plumbing system, I thought, well, actually, there's two things going on. One, I want it to be efficient. So if I heat the house up, I don't want all the heat to end up going through the walls. I want to keep the heat in the house as long as possible, which keeps the bills down, improves the comfort levels. But also starting to get the radiators for heat pump or running at a lower temperature.
What does that mean? And just for the viewers at home, when you're talking about that specification to make why would a radiator that's suitable for a boiler not be suitable for a heat pump? What are we talking in terms of the difference?
So in most of my bedrooms, or the bedrooms as I found them, there was a small radiator under a window, tiny, just one type 1, thin radiator that's designed to run very hot. So you can lean on it and go, oh, my bum's warm, this is great, I took them out and put massive radiators in, actually not that much more expensive, and put big radiators in that you can run at a lower temperature, but they're still heating your room just as effectively. And
I think that's an important one to capture, because I think anybody, regardless of whether they're doing looking at a heat pump or a boiler, should be. I mean, we're actually looking at a project at the moment, and it's a farmhouse renovation. And the client has come to us and asked us to spec up for a heat pump system. So we've designed their underfloor heating system and the radiator system at low temperature.
Yeah,
and the comparison that they have is for a gas boiler installation, and we're quoting more pipe from an underfloor heating perspective to go on the floor. We're quoting bigger radiators, and they actually got us onto site with the engineers that are quoting for the boiler system, and I said, well, let's just take the heat source out of the equation for a minute. It doesn't matter whether it's a heat pump or a boiler. Practically, you should be designing that system into that home, if the customer can afford it, to be designed at a low temperature. Because whether you put a boiler on that or a heat pump, running it at a lower temperature will make it more efficient.
Yeah, the way I think about it is, the hotter your radiators, the more expensive they are to run.
Yeah.
It's that simple. So the house I've got is 4 bedrooms. It's a big detached house with very high ceilings. Like, I can't touch the ceilings. I'm 6'2". My annual energy bill is 170. Well, my monthly energy bill is £170 a month. I know people in terraced houses, 2 up, 2 downs, round the corner from me, that's spending more than that.
There'll be viewers of this show that'll be spending more than that, without a doubt.
Absolutely,
and you've got that from you oversized when you had that opportunity. I mean, I would imagine we're talking a relatively low additional cost to oversize the radiators.
Absolutely.
And from an aesthetic perspective, we're not talking dramatic. You had the opportunity during that renovation. I think we need to make that clear to people, is that this journey was you taking an opportunity where you were stripping the house back to its bones to do the right things. And there is plenty of those renovations going on up and down the country as we speak.
I mean, one of the big takeaways for me, the biggest cost in any job you do is often the person doing it. So if you've got a plumber coming around to your house to change a radiator, get one and say to your plumber, I want to be ready for low temperature. So, don't come in and put me the same tiny thing on the wall. I want a bigger one. If you've got the room, get a thicker one that can cope with the lower temperatures, it's ready then for the future. And if you keep doing that behavior slowly over time, your house will be more and more efficient. If you're getting new windows, ask about triple glazing. If you decorate a room, get a quote to solid wall insulate it. If you're looking at your loft, look at your loft insulation. These are the measures that just improve the efficiency of that house.
But periodic. I think that's a key part, isn't it? You can do some of these things. So my parents, they've just reluctantly redecorated the dining room, and I'm saying to them, in that moment, the radiator's off the wall because they wanted to paint and what have you behind it. So this is the perfect time. There's never going to be a better time to replace that radiator with something bigger that can operate at a lower temperature. Now, because of the rest of the system in the house, they won't necessarily be able to drop their flow temperature at this point in time. But what they will see is that room will react quicker. They will gain a bit of heat. But as you start then taking one room at a time and start designing it, then you will start to be able to reduce that flow temperature.
Which is reducing your bill. So over time, your bills or your energy use is dropping.
That's it.
That's kind of it.
You turn down the boiler temperature and you have this. And then maybe the internal industry term, which it doesn't necessarily have to be towards heat pumps. What you're getting is your home will be heat pump ready. It's talking about making those improvements to your home so that when you do decide to have a heat pump, you are ready.
It's interesting you say though, heat pump ready, because I kind of think of it differently. So a big important point of my house was wanting to get a heat pump. We'll talk about that, I'm sure, in a couple of minutes. But it's getting your house more efficient. Like I'm sure, I have no doubt, and I'm sure I'd be interested what you think. But in 3-4 years' time, I'm sure there'll be heat pumps that can run at high temperatures, run in old systems, whatever. That's coming. But it's about efficiency. It's about reducing your bills. So if you're slowly improving the fabric of your house, whether you're going to keep using a boiler for 10 years, please don't, really stupid idea, or you're going to move over to a heat pump and start saving, you're bringing your energy consumption down. Someone said to me, like, the cheapest energy you ever buy is the one you don't pay for. And what he meant was, be more efficient. You're not paying for it.
It goes with anything, doesn't it? The more you turn it down, if you're driving on the motorway and you're thrashing it out the car, you're going to be using more fuel. It's going to be costing you more money.
Exactly.
The closer you can get to that kind of cruising speed, and that's the same with the heating system. Running at those lower temperatures, you're going to get there. Now, there is a challenge around it. I mean, there's a huge amount of renovation projects going on up and down the country. The message to those people is design your system for lower temperature. If that's underfloor heating, put more pipe in the ground. If it's radiators, oversize them. If it's flow and return pipe work to those radiators, put big enough diameter pipe work in so we can get that energy down. And then if all that means at the moment that you then put a boiler on the end of it, you're still going to get benefits. You're still going to be operating at a lower temperature. And then at some point in the future, and you went through this journey, so you did all that work. And then it came to that moment in time, it's right, okay, the decision is what is going to heat this house? I'm sure you at that point were more aware than most that the opportunity there is for a heat pump or a boiler. So what route did you go down at that time?
Yeah, I think the route I went down. So I got all my plumbing set up. I could run the radiators at a lower temperature. I could keep the house at 20, 22 degrees really happily. It was all great. And I went out to get a heat pump quote, and I've set the house up, big pipes everywhere, all set up, ready, nice and good for the heat pump, and got a quote out, and it was quite difficult actually. I was I was getting numbers thrown at me left, right, and center. I was getting all these calculations, simulations of my house, and I love all that. But I was trying to renovate a house. I just wanted a price and an idea of how big it was going to be, and then sit and go, is this worth it for me? And it was very difficult. It was a complicated process, and it's getting towards winter. I thought, actually, Andrew, are you better spending, I think it was 10 grand for the heat pump at the time, because the guy was just charging what he wanted. Am I better doing that, or am I better actually getting a boiler in the short term and putting the savings into in making my house more efficient and get a heat pump in the future? So I actually end up having to go down that route. I just couldn't get a heat pump quote. This is 2 years ago that I believed in. And I was so frustrated. I mean, my whole life, as I say, is about climate change. That's what motivates me. And I had to get this flipping boiler installed.
But imagine that if you're in that mindset, you are passionate, you're driven by climate change, and somebody even with your experience still has to make the choice.
Yeah.
And if we again take the bells and whistles away from this, we're talking about regardless of your experience and your understanding of the industry and decarbonisation and where everything's going, the fact of the matter is you're a consumer on that journey, and you were presented with a very poor sales journey.
It was
consumer journey.
Poor journey. It was expensive at the time, and I thought, actually, from a climate view, I was better putting the difference in the money into the house to make it more efficient rather than spending that extra. And I was pretty frustrated because my heat's still coming from gas, and that's actually where we met on that journey. About 12 months later. And I think for the viewers, we met separately. We were recommended to talk to each other on LinkedIn.
It was Andrew Bissell.
It was Andrew Bissell, yeah. I really like Andrew. Yeah. I've only met him like 3 times, and he seems to remember me, and I definitely remember him, which is really nice. So I hope he didn't. I was down.
I saw he was down at Buckingham Palace receiving an award.
He was, yeah.
But it was a fantastic product. It was discussions around that sun, but it was actually a post that we were doing or a project we were doing with our Energy Challenge Week members, where we were doing exactly what to addressing the issue that you faced, which is we want to go. How do we standardize and simplify the sales process for a consumer coming through that journey?
Correct.
Because we do, as an industry, and whether it's because of the regulation or some kind of level of justification, I'm assuming a big part of it is directly linked to the fact that heat pumps, as you experienced, have been and continue to be at the moment quite expensive.
I think they're complex. They're presented in a complex way, and the reason we had a couple of chats. You said do you want me to be an advisor to your business? And I was like, absolutely. And the thing that got me was when you were like, we want to make this simple and we want to make it accessible to more people. And so, I believe that the UK needs 20 million heat pumps by 2030, 2035. I think we've got to do that from a climate change perspective. We've got to break our addiction to gas. I'm the only person ever correctly quoted in the Daily Mail. I said, Britain is addicted to gas and Putin one day will turn the gas taps off. That was my, I'm not glad I was right on that.
No,
but we've got to break that addiction to gas. And to get to those kind of numbers, you need something that's simple for consumers, compelling and accessible. And I think that's where I hope that, with the stuff I'm learning in New Zealand with SolarZero, your amazing experience in heat pump and heating systems, we can start to simplify that journey.
You can, I'm convinced that there's ways we can take chunks out of it. Just last week, we did an installation for a customer, and their home was perfectly suitable for a heat pump. They had sufficient radiators, they had sufficient pipework, they had an existing domestic hot water cylinder, and with the boiler upgrade scheme, we were able to fit them a heat pump and a hot water cylinder, and the cost to the customer was £2,900. Which I'm not saying people are sat there with £2,900 to throw at this, but you're starting to get close to the comparable cost of a boiler.
That's comparable to a boiler.
And if you'd have had that quote at that time, and the other thing was we dealt with it very simply. The customer got a 1-page quotation off us. You know, when we went to contract, we provide them with all the designs and stuff like that. But what they wanted, they rang up. The question was, I'm interested in having a heat pump. How much is it going to cost?
And you get an answer. So my journey with the boiler was, I rang up a local plumbing company. I need a boiler fit in this place, and within 2 days I got a quote, £2,900.
And because they're doing it every day,
they're just bang, bang, bang. And I actually rang them back because I'm tight and was like, it should be 2.5 because I've fitted all the pipes already. And they're like, yeah, all right, yeah, fair enough. My heat pump quote took 3 weeks, was complicated and unnecessarily expensive. And, you know, if you're at that position where you can quote in those kind of levels, I think, and where the rate of technology improvement in heat pumps and the cost down that's coming with them, it's going to start being a simple and compelling journey for customers.
There's a huge supply chain. Everything needs to catch up, but it's getting there. And I think we're going to start seeing more of this, and we're going to certainly be promoting more of our case studies and displaying these, you know, simple approach, demystifying it, just getting into the facts and figures. Here's the cost. Here's how it's going to work.
Yeah.
And here's when we're going to be on site to fit it while available. It's like every other industry.
Yeah.
And, you know, there'll be engineers, heat pump engineers up and down the country that will challenge this and say that it's not the right way to go. But right now, to get the volume where we need to be to start decarbonisation, I truly believe you can do volume and quality. I don't see why it has to be a choice as to one or the other. You know,
well, I would argue the boiler industry kind of proves that. They've got volume, they've got it slick, they've got it easy. And a boiler is actually, you know, it's a shed ton of very explosive gas being thrown into your house. Yeah. You know, like that's how people would have seen it 30, 40 years ago.
Absolutely.
And we've simplified that journey down. Yeah. And I would, you know, it's, you know, without doubt that heat pumps are going to be there very soon. I think for customers already, we can get to that position. And although that wasn't my own experience 2 years ago, working with you guys, you know, I'm pretty confident we can get there for other people.
We're definitely going to get there, 100%.
Thank
you very much, Andrew, for all your insight on your own personal journey. Join us for part 3 when we're going to be talking to Andrew about My Grid GB. Is that right?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think that's what we're going to talk about. That is right. Yeah.
It is all about how the grid is coping with the energy that we use in our homes and across commercial buildings. So yeah, join us for part 3.